The air in the room was thick with the cloying sweetness of birthday cake, a stark contrast to the bitterness choking my heart. It was supposed to be Lyra's 5th birthday, a day of rainbow sprinkles and joyful shrieks. But Lyra was gone, taken by a cruel twist of fate years ago. And she, the woman who was supposed to share this hollow ritual with me, was celebrating someone else's birthday. Later, when the fire erupted, a terrifying, all-consuming blaze, I crawled across the scorching floor, my useless legs dragging behind me, and dialed her number. The phone connected, and her voice, sharp and impatient, sliced through the roar of the flames. "Damn it! Zephyr, are you playing games again? Don't think that just because I'm the fire chief of Ethelberg that you can cry wolf." Through the crackling line, I heard a burst of laughter and a cheerful voice. "Chief Vesper, come blow out the candles. We're waiting for you." It was Orion, her childhood sweetheart, the one she'd always truly loved. "Don't call me again," Vesper snapped. "I'm celebrating with him tonight. If there's a real fire, call 911. A sickening click signaled the end of the call, the end of any hope. A wave of despair washed over me, colder than any winter wind. The crimson flames, like hungry beasts, crept closer, licking at my skin. I watched them come, mesmerized, resigned. "Vesper, I won't be calling 911 anymore. Never again. I never imagined I would die on the anniversary of my 5-year-old daughter's death. My wife, Vesper, was the fire chief of Ethelberg, a position of respect, of bravery. And yet, I, her husband, perished in a fire. 20 minutes earlier, I had carefully arranged Lyra's favorite cake on the table, a vibrant confection adorned with her favorite characters. I lit the 5 slender candles, each representing a year of her tragically short life. A sudden gust of wind, sneaking in through a carelessly opened window, knocked the candles onto the floor. The tablecloth, a flimsy, decorative thing, caught fire instantly. Startled, I grabbed my cane, intending to hobble to the kitchen for water. But in my panic, I stumbled. With a sickening thud, I crashed to the floor. The flames spread with terrifying speed, reaching for me, the heat searing my face. I fumbled for my phone, my trembling fingers finally managing to unlock it and dial Vesper's number. She hesitated for what felt like an eternity before answering. "Vesper, help me." I gasped, my voice choked with smoke and fear. "The house is on fire." "What?" Her voice was a mixture of shock and disbelief, followed by a chillingly cold laugh. "Zephyr, are you trying to trick me again? Trying to get me to come home and mourn your illegitimate daughter? I'm telling you, Orion is back from overseas, celebrating his birthday. If there's a real fire, call 911. Her voice was laced with a venom I'd never heard before. It stung worse than the heat. "Lyra, she wasn't illegitimate." I tried to explain, but my voice was already hoarse, raw from the smoke. "Don't mention Lyra to me. In my eyes, she was always your dirty little secret. I married you 5 years ago, and only then did I find out you had a child." Vesper sounded utterly disgusted, on the verge of hanging up. "Don't hang up. Please, I'm begging you. This is real. I'm trapped in a fire." My voice was barely a whisper, a pathetic plea. I admitted I had deceived her, but fate had already delivered its cruel punishment. Lyra had died in a fire before Vesper and I ever married. "Chief Vesper, come blow out the candles. We're waiting for you." Orion's boisterous voice echoed through the phone, a painful reminder of what I was missing, of what I would never have. "What are you doing? And what are you doing with Orion?" My voice, though weak, carried a flicker of anger, quickly fading into a desperate plea. "Vesper, please come back. I don't care about anything else. Just come back. Just see me one last time, please." I lay there, helpless, as the flames devoured my body. Orion was Vesper's childhood sweetheart, her Chingmei. Even their names, Vesper and Orion, were intertwined, constellations in the same sky. I managed a bitter, self-deprecating smile. How could a pathetic, lovesick fool like me ever compete with a lifelong bond? The fire roared, a deafening crescendo. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the inevitable. Perhaps out of pity, after my death, I didn't reincarnate. My spirit remained, tethered to this world, a silent observer. I saw my body, charred beyond recognition, a grotesque mockery of the man I once was. With a sigh of resignation, I drifted to the other side of the city. Inside a lavish, neon-lit nightclub, a group of people were lost in a frenzy of dancing and revelry. The most striking figures in the chaotic scene were Vesper and Orion. They were dressed in revealing clothes, their bodies moving together in a provocative dance. And just a short time ago, I had died in a mysterious fire. I watched them, frozen like a statue, until their dance ended. Vesper nestled against Orion like a bird seeking shelter. Do you think your crippled husband will be all right? Orion's hand stroked Vesper's bare back, a possessive gesture. Vesper leaned into his touch, tightening her arms around his waist. What could possibly happen to him? He's tough as nails. I think. He's just trying to guilt me into mourning his illegitimate daughter. He even had the nerve to put candles out. It's so morbid. A sharp, unexpected pain pierced my heart, as if a needle had been driven into it. Aching, throbbing. So that's how she saw me, how little she thought of me. But why? Then, had she agreed to marry me in the first place? Orion gave her nose a playful flick, a smug smile playing on his lips. If you despise him so much, why did you marry him? Because he's a fool, of course. A devoted, lovesick puppy. Marrying him meant having a free, live-in servant, someone I could boss around and mistreat, and who would still let me have my fun with you. It's perfect. Vesper's laughter was still as sweet and captivating as ever. But my teeth clenched so hard I thought they would shatter. I never realized how cheap my devotion was in her eyes. You're so clever, Orion murmured, and then, right in front of my ghostly presence, he kissed her. Vesper didn't resist. The others in the room discreetly slipped out, even thoughtfully closing the door behind them. Leaning against the door, I suddenly started to laugh. But as I laughed, tears welled up in my eyes. Except, spirits don't have tears. I hugged my knees, burying my head in my lap, my mind flooded with memories of the 5 years I spent with Vesper. I remembered our first encounter. She was wearing her bright orange firefighter's uniform, rescuing me from a collapsed building. Her face was smudged with soot, but to me, it was the most beautiful face in the world. That fire took my leg, and for a long time, I was lost in despair, staring blankly at the ceiling day after day. It was Vesper. She gave me the will to live. She constantly encouraged me. She even pushed me to get a prosthetic leg. And yet, today, I stared down at my artificial limb. For a long time, I was quiet, then I violently ripped off the prosthetic and hurled it across the room. She still cared. Deep down. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding furiously on the door. Chief, Chief, there's a fire at Seashore Gardens, Building 15. You need to come with us. The frantic knocking and the young firefighter's voice finally penetrated the haze of passion inside the room. Vesper hurriedly dressed and rushed out. When she heard Seashore Gardens, a flicker of shock crossed her eyes, quickly replaced by a mask of composure. Where did you say? Seashore Gardens. The young firefighter suddenly realized something. Chief, isn't that where you live? Vesper, you don't think your crippled husband actually burned to death, do you? It would be a shame to lose all that furniture I bought you, Orion drawled, casually buttoning his shirt as he emerged from the room. The young firefighter's eyes widened, taking in the scene, the other man in the room, the lingering scent of intimacy in the air. The young firefighter's expression turned to disgust. What in the world? But what shocked him even more was the way this man casually wrapped his arm around their chief's waist. His tone was playful, almost mocking. Let's go, shall we? Let's see if your crippled husband has been reduced to ashes. In front of her subordinate, Vesper's face flushed with embarrassment. But she didn't push Orion away, her mind clearly elsewhere as she followed the young firefighter to the scene. Thick, black smoke billowed from the upper floors of the building, forming a heavy, ominous cloud. I followed behind Vesper's fire engine, a silent, spectral passenger. 5 years ago, a fire brought us together. And 5 years later, a fire ended it all. I watched her hand, intertwined with Orion's, and couldn't help but lower my head in sorrow. When did things change so drastically between us? I loved her so much. I would wake up early every morning to prepare her breakfast, and she seemed to enjoy it. Her job was demanding, so I would prepare a foot bath for her every night, just to see the satisfied look on her face, even though she never actually smiled. But I was still happy. But now, I couldn't even force a smile. Because Vesper arrived promptly with her team, the fire was quickly brought under control. But there were casualties. The first body carried out was mine. Because I had been at the epicenter of the fire, I was burned beyond recognition. Out of respect for the deceased, a white sheet covered my body. As they carried my remains past Vesper, a gust of wind blew. It lifted the sheet covering my body. If Vesper had turned around, she would have seen that the body being carried past was missing a leg. But she didn't. Her eyes were fixed on the charred remains of her home, on the furniture consumed by the flames, and on her hand, tightly clasped in Orion's. Orion's behavior was flippant, and the fire commissioner, though clearly displeased, didn't say anything out of deference to Vesper. He simply instructed Vesper to oversee the cleanup and then excused himself, claiming he had urgent matters to attend to. Vesper was, after all, the fire chief of Ethelberg, and her competence was undeniable. She quickly organized the cleanup, ensuring the scene was meticulously cleared. But she never realized that I was dead. I clearly saw Orion, while Vesper was busy directing her team, discreetly hide my prosthetic leg. A wicked smile twisted his lips. "Zephyr, I'll make sure you're completely erased from Vesper's life," he muttered to himself. He glanced down at his phone, the staggering amount of debt displayed on the screen making him frown. Then, his hand crept back to Vesper's waist, and he whispered in her ear, "Darling, let's stay here tonight. Your crippled husband is gone." Vesper gave him a knowing smile, hooking her fingers through his belt loop and leading him into what was once my bedroom. I stood there, watching, wanting to rush in and punch those two adulterers. But I couldn't. I could only lean against the door, listening to the sounds of passion emanating from within, sounds that made my heart ache with a mixture of shame and longing, helpless and utterly despondent. But fortunately, I had a mother who loved me dearly. These past few days, sensing my low spirits, she had been calling me frequently, trying to cheer me up. Perhaps because she hadn't been able to reach me for several days, she became worried and came directly to my house. I heard the pounding on the door, and a warmth spread through my spectral form. So, there was still someone in this world who loved me. "Zephyr, are you home? Open the door. It's Mom." The insistent knocking disrupted the intimacy inside. Orion, clearly annoyed, opened the door. Seeing an elderly woman, he said impatiently, "What do you want?" "Old lady, there's no son of yours here. Your son is dead." Orion's words stunned my mother. "What? He's dead? How do you know? And where's Vesper?" "Zephyr is dead, and she didn't even tell me." My mother tried to push past him, peering into the apartment. But what she saw shocked her even more. She saw Vesper, disheveled and flushed, her clothes in disarray. It was obvious to anyone what had just been happening. I closed my eyes, unable to bear the sight. My mother instantly understood, grabbing Vesper's hair and screaming, "You filthy whore! My Zephyr was so good to you, and you cheated on him. You bitch, I'll kill you." Vesper, exhausted from working late, was no match for my mother's fury. Within moments, my mother had dragged her out into the hallway. Holding Vesper by the hair, my mother yelled, "Come look, everyone! This slut cheated on my son. Come see these adulterers." My mother's shouts quickly drew a crowd of curious neighbors. Some even started recording the scene with their phones. "Don't film. Don't film." Vesper covered her face, frantically trying to hide. She turned to Orion, who stood there like a statue, and shrieked, "Are you just going to stand there? Do something." Orion, witnessing my mother's fierce, almost primal rage for the first time, was taken aback. He was scared. Seeing the situation escalating, Orion roared, "Stop it! All of you." My mother finally released her grip. She remembered something and shook Vesper violently. "That man said my son is dead. What happened? And why is he in my son's apartment? Where have you hidden my son? Tell me." Vesper was still dazed, but hearing that I was dead, she snapped back to reality. "Zephyr is dead." She seemed to remember something and broke free from my mother's grasp. She called the firefighter who had been in charge of the cleanup. "Hello, is this Finn? I need to ask, were there any casualties at the fire?" "Yes, there was one. A man with one leg." Finn's voice came through the phone. Crash. Vesper's phone slipped from her grasp and shattered on the floor. She suddenly went wild, running downstairs, starting her car, and disappearing into the night. She ignored Orion's shouts, completely oblivious to his presence. I felt as if I were tethered to her, sitting in the back seat of her car, watching her recklessly run every red light. She had always been the most law-abiding person. But this time, for me, she broke all the rules. Arriving at the fire station, Vesper, led by Finn, went to the room where the bodies were kept. I saw her nervously wringing her hands, a sign of her fear. What was she afraid of? Was she afraid that the body they were about to pull out was mine? But in the end, her fears were confirmed. Finn pulled out the body, his expression somber. "I wanted to tell you it was Zephyr, Chief, but you didn't seem to want to hear it, so I didn't say anything." "How could this happen?" Vesper clutched her head, her voice filled with anguish. Seeing Vesper's pain, I suddenly wanted to laugh, but I found I couldn't. If she had just lifted that sheet, would she have realized I was dead? I felt a surge of anger, but seeing Vesper's suffering, my unwarranted anger subsided. Zephyr, you're pathetic, I told myself. After a long silence, Vesper's trembling hand lifted the white sheet, revealing my face. My son, my son. My mother, standing at the doorway, froze for a moment, then rushed forward, burying my face in her embrace. She turned around, raining blows on Vesper. You venomous woman. You killed my son. I didn't. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Vesper screamed, fleeing the morgue, leaving behind my inconsolable mother and a deeply saddened Finn. Vesper didn't go to work for several days. No one knew where she was. Suddenly, numerous videos appeared online, all showing my mother attacking her. Vesper's reputation was ruined. Seeing Vesper's state, her superiors suspended her, and Finn temporarily took over her duties. I watched Vesper, disheveled and drinking herself into oblivion, and felt a sense of disorientation. Was this the same decisive, strong, and spirited Vesper I had known? Zephyr, I was wrong. Please come back. You promised to spend the rest of your life with me. And you wanted a daughter, right? I'll give you a daughter, okay? Vesper mumbled. Daughter? I thought of Lyra, gone too soon. I thought of Vesper's cruel words, and I shook my head. Forget it. Vesper tilted her head back and downed another bottle of alcohol. Her arm fell limply to her side, and thud, a diary fell to the floor. Vesper crawled over, flipped through it, and finally burst into uncontrollable sobs. January 27th, sunny. Vesper is out on another call today. I'm alone at home again. Today is Lyra's birthday. When will she ever mourn Lyra with me? February 26th, cloudy. I learned to make another dish today, braised pork ribs, Vesper's favorite. But she's not home again. She said she's on a call, but I know today is Orion's return. March 27th, sunny. Vesper finally stayed home with me today. I'm so happy. But she looked at my prosthetic leg with a hint of disdain. Does she look down on me? No, I need to pull myself together. I need to train hard so she and her team won't look down on me. April 31st, cloudy. All this training is finally paying off. I even received praise from Vesper. I'm so happy. I need to train even harder so I can see her smile more often. Her smile is so beautiful. I really love it. Zephyr, I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you alone at home. I shouldn't have looked down on you, and I definitely shouldn't have been messing around with Orion. I watched Vesper clutch the diary to her chest like a precious treasure, her cries echoing in the empty room. But I stood there, watching, my heart utterly devoid of emotion. No. Vesper suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. Zephyr, I won't let you die in vain. I will avenge you. Vesper came to my house. My mother, seeing her, immediately unleashed a torrent of abuse. You bitch, you dare show your face here? You killed my son, my only son. Dodging my mother's blows, Vesper said, Auntie, I came here today to retrieve Zephyr's belongings. I'm going to avenge him. The firmness in Vesper's voice convinced my mother somewhat. Really? My mother asked suspiciously. Vesper nodded emphatically. Really? My mother went into the bedroom and brought out the charred, unrecognizable remains of my prosthetic leg. This is all that's left. Everything else was burned. Vesper's eyes reddened at the sight of the prosthetic. She mumbled, This is the prosthetic I bought him when we officially became a couple. How did things end up like this? My mother's expression remained stoic. It wasn't until Vesper left that my mother spat on the floor. Bitch, my son is dead, and now she's pretending to be heartbroken. She slammed the door shut. I stood there, silent. Vesper began investigating the truth behind that night. Although she was suspended, she had been fire chief for several years. She quickly obtained the surveillance footage from the apartment complex that night. In the footage, a figure was seen carrying a cylindrical object. Upon closer inspection, the figure became familiar. Vesper's face turned pale. It was Orion. Orion, why did you do this? In the office, Vesper confronted Orion, her voice filled with rage. Orion leaned back in his chair, his expression nonchalant. If he didn't die, how could I be with you? How could I win the heart of Chief Vesper? Vesper staggered. So you did it on purpose, didn't you? You killed the man I loved. You bastard. Vesper shoved Orion hard. Orion didn't dodge. He took the full force of Vesper's shove, staggering backward and falling to the floor. Love. Orion scoffed. Do you even deserve to use that word? If you truly loved him, how could you be with me? How did he die in a fire? You're the fire chief of Ethelberg. Don't you find that ironic? So, the person who least deserves to talk about love is you. No, it's not like that. Vesper clutched her head in anguish, collapsing onto the floor. Not like that. Zephyr, now revealed as Orion's internal thought process, the real Zephyr is dead, loomed over Vesper, his voice dripping with contempt. The person who killed Zephyr wasn't me, it was you. Aha! Vesper screamed, a primal cry of pain, and fled from the room. Orion, a smirk playing on his lips, started to leave as well. But he was stopped at the doorway by several men in black suits, looking like bodyguards. Orion's face paled. 2 days later, it was my funeral. Vesper, still presenting herself as my wife, attended the ceremony. No matter how much my mother hit her, how much she cursed her, Vesper remained stoic. She wore a black armband, silently enduring the scorn and ridicule of everyone present. Who is that? She looks familiar. You don't know? That's his wife. Supposedly, she's the fire chief of Ethelberg. Can you believe it? Her husband died in a fire. Oh, I remember. Isn't she the slut from that viral video a few days ago? Her husband had just died, and she was already fooling around with her lover in the bedroom, and then her mother-in-law caught them. Yeah, that's her. How could someone with such morals become a fire chief? She's a disgrace. What do you think? The speaker gave a knowing smirk. How else? By sleeping her way to the top. Vesper lowered her head, her face flushed with shame, but she couldn't deny any of it. I watched from the sidelines, a silent, ethereal observer, and sighed softly. She didn't have to come today. After the funeral, everyone left, but Vesper stayed to help my mother clean up. My mother shoved her away roughly. I don't need your fake sympathy. Vesper felt a wave of dizziness and collapsed to the ground. My mother, seeing her condition, rushed her to the hospital. But the doctor's words nearly made my mother faint as well. Vesper was pregnant. When she woke up, my mother hesitantly asked, "Whose child is it?" Vesper was bewildered, her hands gently caressing her stomach. "I'm going to be a mother." Then, as if remembering something, her face turned ashen. I watched all of this unfold with a detached calmness. Because I knew whose child Vesper was carrying. It was Orion's. Not mine. Out of kindness, my mother took care of Vesper until she was discharged from the hospital. After leaving the hospital, Vesper returned to the Ethelberg Fire Department. Although her superiors didn't explicitly say so, they had a talk with her and reassigned her from the front lines. Vesper lowered her head, saying nothing, but only I knew. How much effort Vesper had put into becoming fire chief. Taking her away from the front lines was worse than death for her. But Vesper accepted it stoically, diligently working in logistics every day. But 3 months later, her stomach, which should have been showing, remained flat. She also developed a drinking habit. She would spend almost every night at the bar until late, then stumble home. Like a walking corpse. Out of a lingering sense of compassion, I followed her, as if I could somehow protect her. 3 months passed, and my mother still wanted to take Vesper in and care for her, but when she saw her flat stomach, she understood everything. One day, I followed Vesper home. In her drunken stupor, she received a phone call. "Hello, is this Vesper? I have the person you most want to get rid of. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, at the old hometown tavern." The caller hung up. The person she most wanted to get rid of? A name popped into my head. Indeed, Vesper sobered up slightly. She was no longer a mess, and she started to get herself together. The next day, I followed Vesper to the old hometown tavern. There, I saw Orion, tied up like a mummy. The caller stood before a chair, half hidden in shadow, half bathed in light. "It's you," Vesper spoke. I had never understood why Orion wanted me dead. Until I saw Kalen, a faint suspicion formed in my mind. "Kalen," Vesper rushed over. "What are you doing?" She looked at Orion, who was bound and gagged. Orion also recognized Vesper's voice. Orion forcefully spat out the gag. "Vesper, is that you? Come and save me. For old time's sake, please save me." "Save you?" Vesper laughed coldly, slapping Orion hard across the face. The crisp sound of the slap was shockingly loud. The black cloth covering Orion's face fell off. "You? Vesper, how did you become like this?" Orion spat out a broken tooth, looking at her in disbelief. Yes, Vesper had changed. She was haggard, her complexion sallow, with dark circles under her eyes. She was no longer the radiant beauty she once was. A mocking smile played on Vesper's lips. "Is that so? I did change. I changed from the moment you killed Zephyr. To tell you the truth, ever since that day, I've been thinking about how to send you to hell. Now, it seems like it's all come together without any effort." With a thud, Vesper threw a stack of documents at Orion. Orion read them, his face lighting up with surprise. What? You were pregnant with my child? Yes, I was pregnant with your child. But now, I've aborted it. Vesper's words were calm, but they struck Orion like a thunderclap. You aborted my child? Who gave you the right to abort my child without my consent? Orion began to struggle violently. You killed Zephyr, you killed my husband, and you still expect me to have your child? You should just die. Vesper was enraged, slapping Orion several more times. Orion's face quickly swelled up. Orion was speechless. Vesper wanted to hit him again, but Kaelin grabbed her hand. I'll help you finish him off, Kaelin said, pulling a knife from his pocket. The gleaming steel blade flashed menacingly in the darkness. Vesper was startled. What are you doing? Anyone you dislike. I won't let them exist in this world, Kaelin said, about to stab Orion. Orion was terrified. His words jumbled as he struggled and begged for mercy. No, you can't do this. Vesper desperately clung to Kaelin. Clang. The knife, glinting with a cold light, fell to the floor. Orion, scared out of his wits, saw Vesper openly embracing another man, and a surge of betrayal and rage erupted within him. He screamed at Vesper. Vesper, you really are a slut. I'm not even dead yet, and you're already cuddling with another man. Have you been sleeping with this Kaelin all along? Slap. Kaelin slapped Orion hard across the face. Shut your filthy mouth. Don't you dare slander Vesper. Orion's head snapped to the side, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he lowered his head, saying nothing. The enraged Orion probably didn't know the relationship between Vesper and Kaelin. I knew. When Vesper was fire chief, she had once saved Kaelin's life. Just like me. But Kaelin had kept his feelings for Vesper hidden, a secret love. He had always protected her from the shadows. And now, Kaelin had kidnapped Orion for Vesper. My heart sank. I frowned, looking at them. Kaelin wanted to hit Orion again, but Vesper stopped him. Vesper stood before Orion, looking down at him. I'll ask you one last time. Why did you kill Zephyr? He had no quarrel with you. Why did you do it? Maybe it was my imagination. But Vesper's voice seemed to carry a sob. Was she crying for me? Orion was stunned for a moment, then burst into manic laughter. I never thought the esteemed fire chief would actually fall in love with a cripple. Let me tell you, my goal in getting close to you was never love. It was money, power. I didn't want to be bullied, to be trampled in the mud. And only you, the fire chief, could give me that. I never expected that you, the seemingly pure and virtuous fire chief, would fall for my tricks so easily. Then, he looked at the furious Kaelin and smiled smugly. Kaelin, you probably never got to experience her even once, did you? Do you want to know what your goddess is like in bed? Slap, slap, slap. Kaelin furiously slapped Orion's face. Vesper clung tightly to Kaelin, her face filled with regret. How did you kill him? Orion's eyes gleamed with a bloodthirsty light. That day, I used the key you gave me to enter his house early and spread gasoline all over the room. Maybe even the heavens were helping me. He just happened to light candles that day, and a gust of wind just happened to blow, igniting the house. Everything was perfect. Slap. Before Orion could finish, Vesper slapped him hard. You bastard. I never imagined that beneath your seemingly gentle exterior, you harbored such malice. How could I have been so blind as to fall for you? Vesper, having unleashed her fury, collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I understood everything now. Orion had incurred a large debt overseas. His return was simply to find a free ATM, to pay off his debts. And his former childhood sweetheart, Vesper, was his target. Did I really do something wrong? No. In my heart, you'll always be my brave and heroic fire chief. Kaelin went to Vesper's side, knelt down, hugged her, and comforted her gently. Seeing Vesper crying on the floor, my heart stirred slightly. I drifted over, wanting to touch Vesper's head, but it was as if an insurmountable barrier separated us. I wanted to touch her, but I couldn't touch anything. Don't put on this show of deep affection in front of me, Orion said, a sneer playing on his lips. He then turned to Kaelin. Can't you see what kind of person this woman is? She's selfish, cold-blooded. She doesn't deserve your love. Deserve or not, it's not for you to judge. In my heart, she will always be the fire chief of Ethelberg. You are the one who's a scoundrel, playing with people's feelings. Kaelin said, picking up the knife and about to stab Orion. Orion's face was filled with terror, and he struggled to move backward. Flash. The gleaming white knife plunged into Orion's chest. Orion looked at Vesper in disbelief. He opened his mouth, mumbling, "Vesper, how could you? Believe me, I really did love you. I don't want your rotten love. I don't need it, and I don't want it. Go to hell," Vesper said, pushing the knife deeper into his chest. Orion stared at Vesper in disbelief, his eyes shifting from terror to despair, and finally to resignation. Orion collapsed to the floor. It was all over. Vesper's body went limp, and she fell to the ground. Crash. The door was kicked open by the SWAT team that had arrived. I closed my eyes, unable to watch Vesper being taken away in handcuffs. Vesper was sentenced to 20 years for intentional homicide. Kaylin went to see Vesper. I followed. Having not seen her for several months, Vesper was even thinner. The oversized prison uniform hung loosely on her frame, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept well in a long time. I already took all the blame. Why did you still come to see me, Kaylin? Vesper looked directly at the man in front of her. Orion was right. I don't deserve your love. So forget me. Find someone you love and live a good life. Kaylin's hand, holding the phone, trembled slightly. Vesper, I will never forget you. Orion was a scumbag. He didn't deserve your love. Kaylin lowered his head, wiping the tears from his face with his hand. He would never forget the day he was trapped in a fire. All the firefighters believed there was no one left in that pile of rubble, but Vesper insisted, and she rescued him. After that fire, he lost everything. His house, his parents, his wife, and his children were all gone in one night. It was Vesper. She found him a job and gave him money so he could survive. In his heart, Vesper was the best woman in the world. So, when he learned that the woman he held in his heart had been hurt by the scumbag Orion, he was filled with rage and kidnapped him that night. He had lost everything, so let him be the one to end it all. But he never expected that Vesper would kill him. She saved him again. Vesper, Kaylin looked into Vesper's eyes, his voice earnest. I love you. I'll wait for you to get out. Can you accept me? Kaylin waited anxiously for Vesper's answer. No, I don't love you. You don't have to wait for me, Vesper said mercilessly. I killed the man I loved most in this life. No one can ever replace him. So, you don't have to wait for me. Live a good life. Vesper hung up the phone without hesitation and signaled to the guard that she wanted to go back. Kaylin watched Vesper leave. But Vesper never turned back. I watched Kaylin's desolate figure, and my heart inexplicably felt a sense of relief. I didn't know what I was relieved about. Maybe it was because I didn't want her to love another man. Maybe I still loved her. Another year passed. With the help of the government and neighbors, my mother started a small business. My mother's life was busy and fulfilling, and she occasionally went to the square to dance. My mother gradually emerged from the abyss of grief over losing her son. But one day, as she was packing up her stall to go home, she heard the sound of a baby crying on the road. My mother got out of her car and saw that it was a baby abandoned by its parents. The baby looked a lot like me when I was little. My mother smiled at her. She decided to adopt this baby, with whom she felt a connection on New Year's Eve. The scene shifted, and I saw Kaylin standing in front of a newly opened supermarket, beaming with joy. Another year passed. I saw my mother bending down to help Jia learn to walk. That's right, my mother named the baby Jia. After a while, my mother let go of her and stood 10 steps away. My mother clapped her hands, encouraging Jia. Jia, come to mommy. Jia, with a smile on her face, stumbled forward. Another 3 years passed. I saw Kaylin, smiling brightly, standing in front of a newly opened supermarket. But this supermarket was larger than the previous one, and he was standing next to a beautiful woman who was holding a 1-year-old child. I thought, they are all doing well. It was time for me to leave. On the day before I left, I went to the prison. I took one last look at Vesper, who was always clutching my prosthetic leg. I whispered in my heart, Vesper, I'm leaving. And then, as if Vesper had a telepathic connection with me. Zephyr, you're back, aren't you? Vesper, holding my prosthetic leg, spoke while hugging it and lunging towards me. But she grabbed nothing. She just fell flat on her face. The surrounding inmates laughed at her wishful thinking. They mocked her for not knowing what was good for her. She had such a good man waiting for her, but she didn't want him. And I gradually faded away, dissipating into the beautiful spring day. Vesper, in the next life, I never want to meet you again.